Hey guys, Ben here with 4 Daytonas, a Speedmaster, 2 60-year-old documents, a set of digital calipers, a scale, and a laptop to talk about this. This is the Rolex Cosmograph Daytona, also known as the Le Mans. It is, without a doubt, the most interesting, most talked about watch of the past 5 years. It is not at all what we expected from Rolex, and I think that's what makes it so wonderful. So let's get into it. Reference 126529LN. Serial numbers, or reference numbers rather, have gotten a lot longer since I used to do this all the time. So again, that's 126529LN. That is the Rolex Daytona Le Mans, otherwise known as kind of the modern day Paul Newman 6263, 6240 black dial screw down pusher in white gold only. And of course, this is with a sapphire case back. So this watch was introduced kind of against the traditional way of introducing a watch by Rolex. Rolex is, if nothing if not, a rule follower, so to speak. They are the folks that are effectively the anchor of what used to be known as Baselworld. Now they're Watches of Wonders in Geneva. They are, without a doubt, the most powerful, most influential watch company in the world, and they take that responsibility very seriously. So you get a very almost predictable, conservative, staid way of doing things. So they came out in Watches and Wonders 2023 with a new Platinum Daytona. They came out with the new version of a steel Daytona. But what they did not come out with is this. They came out with this watch 2 months later on the actual running of Le Mans. I remember exactly where I was. I remember who I was with. I remember what I was doing, because it is so unusual for me to get that excited about a new watch. This is the most exciting watch I've seen in a long time, which is going to sound ridiculous to people that don't care about modern Rolex or Rolex at all, but it's hard to believe that Rolex made this watch. The fact that they would do a Paul Newman dial on a modern Daytona with an open case back is just crazy. So before we get into what the watch really is and what I think of it, we're going to take a step back. This is being called the Le Mans. Le Mans is, of course, the 24-hour race run in Le Mans, France. Last year was the 100th anniversary of this race. So this, in theory, is a watch to celebrate 100 years of the running of Le Mans. And for the longest time, there was this belief within the community that Rolex didn't care about its history. That was clearly never true. They've had a patrimony department for years, decades really. But they wouldn't make these overt public gestures towards their history. This is probably one of the most overt gestures towards this history ever done, because they're calling it the Le Mans. The Rolex Daytona Le Mans was not a thing in the catalog really ever until you go back to 1963. So in 1963, or in fact 1964, this is from my personal collection. This has been in my office for about 12 years. This is the catalog to the 1964 running of Sebring. Sebring is a race in Florida. This took place on March 20th through 21st, 1964. If you scroll through, you see the old typical Sebring sweetheart pinup, because 1960s. You see ads for great cars. There's an old Mercedes Pagoda when it was new. You see an old Porsche 356. As you go towards the back, because of course this was before Rolex insisted on being the first ad in any publication they were in, you see something called this, the new Rolex chronograph. The second line after that is called Le Mans. So this is something that I've cited for many years now. This is one of the rarest, most special ads that I've ever seen in watch collecting, because you're effectively saying that Rolex, the original idea for the watch was not Daytona, it was Le Mans. I happen to have and own, and for a long time owned, one of these really early 6239s where it doesn't say Daytona on the dial. It's an incredible ad, it's an incredible story, but you can see very clearly that Le Mans was, in fact, as we see here, the original name of the Daytona. What's amazing also is that effectively immediately after that, I mean really this is early 1964, by late 1964, early 1965, you started to see ads that actually called it the Daytona. So by late 1964, the ads calling this Le Mans disappeared. And we don't hear that name again from Rolex until May of this year. It's hard to really contextualize how big of a deal the return of Le Mans is for Rolex. So we're going to get into this new watch, but I want to talk about a few other things on the way there. So this is the current Le Mans. It's got an open case back. It's Rolex caliber 4132. Over here we have the stainless steel Rolex Daytona. This reference was introduced in 2016. This was the big deal because it was for the first time we were getting a ceramic bezel on a stainless steel case. I famously, and as our old friend Stephen Pulverant likes to cite, I don't want to say furious, but I would say despondent was the term that he would often use in 2013 when on the 50th anniversary of Daytona, we got a ceramic bezel only on a platinum case with a baby blue dial and a brown bezel, which is just like such an odd combination, although I've come around on that. So this is the watch that kind of everybody was hoping would come out in 2013, came out 3 years later. But this is, kind of a direct progenitor of the Le Mans. And then I have another watch. This is another white gold Daytona that is mine, that has a ceramic bezel, but not on a bracelet. And for the longest time, you could not get a white gold, or really any gold Daytona with a ceramic bezel and a bracelet, really, until this one. So these two watches have the Rolex caliber 4130. You now have in the brand new stainless steel version the 4131, and then this has the 4132. The only difference between the 4132 and the 4131 is that on the 4132, which is only available in this reference in the Le Mans, is that you have a 24-hour register. So you have the ability to count for 24 hours. Le Mans, of course, is a 24-hour race. So in theory, and granted, nobody's actually wearing this watch while you're driving at Le Mans, but you could time yourself over 24 hours with this watch. And as far as I know, there are not many other 24-hour registers available on really any that I can think of, mechanical chronographs in this world. Certainly no other Daytonas, I can tell you that. So the fact that you've got a 24-hour counter on this is really pretty cool, and I think one of the most interesting parts of this watch. I've owned this watch for a month and change now. I've worn it to Geneva. I've worn it on several intercontinental flights and some domestic flights. I've worn it driving. I've worn it with my kids. The 24-hour counter is frankly, I think, one of the most rewarding things about it. You have also the open case back, which again is like, if I told myself, a future version of myself 10 years ago, that Rolex would do an open case back, I just frankly wouldn't have believed him. I mean, it's just something that is so disconnected from kind of what Rolex stands for. And frankly, it's one of those things that I don't even know that I support. I'm happy that it's here, but I don't even know that I like it, because on my steel and gold watch, I actually engrave every modern Rolex I have with my initials or some version of it, the year, and then where I was when I purchased the watch. So this watch I bought from Rolex Wempe here in the city in 2019. This watch I bought actually at one of my first Dubai Watch Weeks, which was 2017 from the Siddiquis, an amazing family over there. And these are great memories for me. I've heard so many stories about Rolexes that are engraved being passed down. It's something that I intend to do for sure. But now all of a sudden you can't engrave them in the traditional way. That is a little bit of a bummer to me, but at the same time also, this is just such a curiosity of seeing an open case back on a Daytona. A lot of the criticisms of this watch stem around slightly different case dimensions than what we've seen in the past, and I just wanted to kind of get to the core of it here, so I brought along a digital caliper here. So we can see exactly how big this watch is in terms of dimensions. It is, from crown to the other side, we have 43 millimeters. So we'll just compare that to the stainless steel version here. The stainless steel version on this is actually the exact same, 43 millimeters. Then you go to the white gold here, case dimensions, and crown, again, 43. So again, the case dimensions here are exactly the same. If we go to the lugs, just to be very careful here, this is 26.85 on the new one, 26.98. So, okay, ever so slightly wider at the lugs, but really effectively the same kind of proportions. They are slightly wider, I would say, than kind of what we're used to at the lug. I think that the big thing for me, having been wearing this watch now for over a month, the only real thing that I noticed the difference of is how thick it is. And I will say that is for sure because of the open case back on the back. So let's just take a look at what that looks like. So we'll look at the white gold. White gold is 12.22 millimeters thick on the old white gold, and on this one, this is 12.28. So maybe the difference is all in my head. Maybe it's just my own perception saying, hey, this is an open case back, so it has to be thicker. That's a criticism that is often kind of bandied about with open case backs versus closed. Obviously, really nominally different in terms of thickness here. The other thing that I'll say is this being a white gold watch is pretty heavy. It's not too heavy. I'm actually a fan of heavy watches now. Stainless steel, which for the longest time was kind of like the holy grail metal for so many of us, is now kind of something that it's just not that appealing to me. So let's just compare and contrast here. So we have a stainless steel watch, we have a scale of the last generation Daytona. This watch weighs 136 grams. the new Le Mans Daytona is 200 grams on the dot. So, considerably heavier for sure. Let's just compare the old one without the gold bracelet. This one is 158 grams. So, you're talking about a 30-gram difference between steel to gold, and then another, I would say, 40 grams to get into the bracelet. And then just for comparison's sake, again, this is 200 grams. Yep, 200 grams in white gold. This is the modern day Le Mans. And now let's take a look at the very first Le Mans, which of course is a stainless steel watch from 1963, much smaller dimensions. This is 88 grams, so we're talking less than half the weight. So a really, really different watch. And again, this watch on the wrist is fantastic, as I think all Rolexes are. I mean, the case dimensions, as we said, are no larger than the steel ones. We just proved that. It looks amazing on the wrist. It's incredibly satisfying to own. The kind of like traditional criticism of the aesthetics of this watch were really around the use of red for Daytona and the 100 marker on the bezel. I happen to be colorblind. I don't see it at all. They literally just disappear into black. From what I've been told by my friends here in the office, it's much better in person than you would have seen in the pictures. Somebody described the photographs, the red in the photographs, as lipstick red. This is really more, according to them, as something that just kind of blends in and is not so overt and kind of in your face. For me, it doesn't matter at all because I can't see it. But ultimately, this is not super pronounced and not something that really detracts from the specialness of the watch. This watch retails for $51,400, I believe. Yes, $51,400. How do you get this watch? You go to your authorized dealer and you say, hey, can I have this watch? And then you're probably gonna be told no. If you are told yes, it's gonna take probably some time. I know a few guys that have this watch already. John Mayer has one, Tom Brady has one, Mark Wahlberg has one. People like that who are not only certainly well known, but also, consistent buyers of Rolex at authorized dealers. Those are the people that are going to get the calls first. And to be clear, I named three, I would say hyper famous people in the watch community, but I know probably 4 or 5 other guys whose name you wouldn't recognize that also have this watch. And, they may or not post them on Instagram, it doesn't matter, but they are regular buyers of Rolex at all price points. And that, as I think everyone may not know, but should know, is how you get any watch from Rolex or Patek. You have consistent support across price points. You do things that you're buying watches not only that are worth several X retail the minute you take delivery. You're buying things because you love it, and I think that is still the best way to get any great watch from any hard to get brand. So again, if you want this, you probably already have a multi-year relationship with an authorized dealer. If you don't, it would be challenging, I think, to get one anytime soon. The secondary market price, I'm just going to pull up our little friends over here, Chrono24, and type in the reference number. Okay, let's see what we got. There are 25 listings for this watch. I would guess out of those 25 exist probably 5, just based on what I know how this tends to work. The highest price asked for this watch is $400,000. That is ridiculous for this watch. Also, why would you pay $400,000 when the next listing on it is $240,000? So I would say the average price for this watch, based on what I'm seeing, and these are ranging from UK, Hong Kong, there's one in the US at $276,000, there's one in Belgium for $324,000. I know of one that sold privately from a gray market dealer recently, and the price that it actually transacted at was $230,000. So we're talking about 5-6x retail for this watch. How long will that last? I don't know. It all depends on how long it takes for Rolex to really put these out into the market. Obviously, many times retail for a watch is something that some people are down to do and some people are not. But I think it's not surprising to see this watch in particular, which is for sure the most kind of exciting thing Rolex has done in years, trade for 5 or 6 retail. I think there's not much direct competition for what this watch is from really anybody, because it's so different and it's so special relative to kind of what we see every day. It's iconic. It's bringing back, as I said, a name that Rolex hasn't used in 60 years. I think that the one watch that is a head-to-head competitor is actually this watch. This is the Speedmaster, Omega Speedmaster, 42 millimeters. This is the Canopus Gold. This is a hand-wound 3861 movement. Canopus is an engineered metal that they created that has palladium, it has rhodium, and it has platinum in it. It is actually quite a bit brighter and quite a bit heavier than traditional white gold, and because of that, this watch is actually more expensive than the Le Mans Daytona. It's priced at $54,200. It's 42 millimeters. It is incredibly heavy. I mean, this watch is so heavy. So again, the Le Mans Daytona, I think we said was what, 200 200 grams. Oh, gotta reset that. Yep, 200 grams. And the Omega Speedmaster Canopus 42 is a good 24 grams heavier than that. So we're talking 10% heavier for a watch that, yes, is 2 millimeters wider, but effectively, you know, a head-to-head competitor. And I think, you know, this is a watch that I absolutely adore, and I think is actually extremely elegant and extremely understated, and a watch that, frankly, I really love because nobody understands what it is. They think it's just a steel Speedmaster. But if you know a white dial Speedmaster and how rare that is, you know this is a special watch. This is the only thing that I can think of that's a head-to-head competitor with the new Le Mans Daytona. It is different in that it's hand wound, it's a little bit larger, it's Omega. You know, Omega and Rolex have this great kind of rivalry of champions here. So I think it's really neat to compare the two. Hand wound versus automatic is really different. They both have open case backs. The Omega bracelet is lovely. It's the super tapered bracelet that came out with the 50th anniversary of the gold watch. The one thing that I like about both these bracelets is they're both micro adjustable. So on Omega, you press this button, you can slide it out 2 millimeters there, slide it back in. On Rolex, they're using the old clasp here where you actually fold it and unfold it just like this. So right now it's extended, snap it in, now it's a little bit smaller. So both Rolex and Omega do that very well. Both bracelets are really different. You know, Rolex has this incredible high polish down the center link here and brushing on the side. The Omega is all brushed. I prefer all brushed, frankly. So again, you have this kind of one and only direct competitor of the Le Mans Daytona here in the Canopus Speedmaster. So again, I think, you know, this is a really neat watch that says so much about where Rolex is. It says that they are paying attention, first of all, which I think, you know, as somebody who owns an original Le Mans from 1963, is really neat and really compelling. Like you get the sense that like they really appreciate their history. Rolex has this incredible history that really nobody else can rival. And it allows people to kind of like relive that early 60s generation of Daytona and sport watches in general. And then of course the late 60s, early 70s, you know, design ethos of these exotic Paul Newman dials. Like this is a Paul Newman dial made in 2023. That's basically been something that we've all been asking for since day one, as long as anybody can remember, and they actually did it. And I think, again, that is, I don't want to say it's a thank you, but it almost feels like a thank you from Rolex to the community for supporting them and making them kind of this, the great lasting powerhouse of collectible watches in this world. And I think, you know, if you follow any of the guys on Instagram that are deeply into the auction world, for years, Patek was the dominant force in auctions. If a watch sold for $1 million plus, it was always Patek. That changed with the Christie's Daytona sale in 2013, 10 years ago in fact, where all of a sudden you had the first $1 million Daytona, you had a watch like this sell for crazy numbers, you had people in the audience, you know, cheering for results, and that put the Daytona at the forefront of everybody's mind. And then of course when Phillips sold the Paul Newman for $18 million, that really cemented the Daytona as, you know, the iconic watch. And now you have the 6062 and the 4113s and really special Rolex that continue to sell for seven figures. But Rolex is now the dominant force in collectible watches, and I think this watch celebrates that and validates that.